What's up, guys? Today we are going to be installing some 3/8 and 1/4 inch wheel spacers on the 285 6520 BFGs and the leveling kit, just to give it a little extra pop. Here's a shot from the back side. I'll try and get it flush here. Right there. You can see it's almost perfectly flush with the fender here. I just want it to stick out a tiny bit more, and I don't want any like major rubbing to go on. I do have really minor rubbing in the front end right now on the factory mud flaps, so if I was to do like 1.5 or 2 inch wheel spacers, it would definitely be a problem there. And here's a look from the front. Again, just barely inside the fenders. I know a 1/4 inch or 3/8 isn't very much, but again, I just want a little extra pop, a little bit more stance out of it. But I don't have fender flares, so I don't want to get a bunch of rock chips. I don't want anything too aggressive. And like I said, I don't want to have to remove my mud flaps or basically cut them all the way off. I want to retain those. So the front track width, which is how wide the axle is in the front, is actually 68.5 inches, and the rear is only 68.1 inches. So the front axle is 0.4 inches wider right out the gate, which is why I'm going to do the 1/4 inch spacers in the front and the 3/8 in the rear. So that little extra thickness from the 3/8 in the rear should basically true everything up. It'll be within 1/8 of an inch as far as axle width goes from the front to the rear. And of course, as you can see, weather is cooperating as usual. A little bit of drizzle, but that's not going to stop us. We're going to go ahead and get this on and see how much worse our rubbing gets on the mud flaps and what kind of trimming we can do to remedy that. So here are the spacers. They're Baer brand, B-A-E-R. I got them off Summit Racing, I think. This is the 1/4 inch one. They're billet, so they're much sturdier feeling than some of the chintzy cast ones I've seen. And then this is the 3/8 one, which is like dual drilled for different bolt patterns. They're actually different outer diameters. This is kind of purely experimental. I don't know if these will for sure even fit. The center hub bore on both seems to be the same, so hopefully this all fits. We'll find out here soon. All right, so I'll go ahead and cracked the lug nuts loose before jacking up the axle. Used my locking key, of course, for there. 7/8 socket for the lug nuts. All right, so like I said, we're gonna put the 3/8 spacers on the rear. Looks like it's perfect dimensions on the inside here. Now, the axle doesn't stick out beyond this, so this is not gonna center the wheel anymore. But if you take a look at the wheel, I don't think it ever really centered that much to begin with, because this lip is about as thick as that wheel spacer. So we've got conical lug nuts, which are going to center the wheel. So I'm not too concerned about it. I'll be the guinea pig for you guys, let you know if my wheel falls off. Jesus. So if anyone's wondering, the studs are 1 5/8 inches long. So you need at least 1 5/8 inches thick wheel spacer if you're going to get the bolt-on style, in order for them to not interfere with the wheel. Slight correction on that. I just inspected the back of the wheel, and if you think about it, if you were to bolt on a bolt-on style wheel spacer, the wheel spacers always rotate the studs a little bit. So if you bolt the spacer on, the new studs from the spacer wouldn't be here, they'd be like here, and these holes come in this way. So these would be able to, in theory, tuck into like these pockets right here. So you could run like 1.5 inch spacer, I guess, without having to cut studs shorter. Just a little fun fact. And with the 3/8 spacer installed, we still have, you can see the end of the stud, there's not really any threads for the last probably 1/4 inch of it, but we have at least a good full inch of threaded stud, slightly more than that for the lug nut still, so I think we should be just fine. And the wheel itself, from the flat mating surface to where the cone mating surface starts, is roughly 1/2 inch, so we will have approximately 1/2 inch of wheel stud.
Piece of that.
Little over 1/2 inch. So really we're able to utilize almost all the threads. It's about 3/4 I would say between 1/2 and 3/4 of an inch worth of threads in the lug nut. So it's not like we're really missing out on much, maybe like 2 threads. And here's another view of about how much thread you're gonna get with the 3/8 spacers in the back. Remember that the cone kind of goes in a bit and the threads do start immediately. So you are getting a little bit of penetration into the wheel there. It's not just, you know, from the flush point forward. You are getting a little bit more. All that you're getting. All right, so here's the front 1/4 inch spacer. It does have a little bit of protrusion yet here in the center, but again, they're conical lug nuts, so that's gonna center your wheel anyways. And with this, you're gonna get about 1.25 inches worth of threads, maybe just slightly less, because like I said, the threads end a little soon on the ends here. It probably doesn't really matter since the lug nuts are going to be pinching this anyways, but the way I'm installing it, as you can see, the center bore has kind of a bevel here. On this side, it's flat. I take and put the flat side towards the rotor. Oh my God! Also, I will post these 1/4 inch spacers as well as the 3/8 ones if I can find them, again, in the video description if you want to buy them. And then reinstall the wheels with the 7/8 socket again. Lug nut torque is 130 foot-pounds, and I recommend retorquing your wheels after about 50 to 100 miles worth of driving. All right, so this side of the truck has the 3/8 spacer in the back, the 1/4 inch in the front. Both on the other side are still stock, no spacers. Kind of in the way of the garage here, but let's try and get a shot. Up. Right, get lower. Oh, like that. So again, just a tiny bit outside the fender, as opposed to that. All right, so here's the finished product with all 4 spacers installed. Exactly what I was looking for. I didn't want too much bulldog stance, like 1.5 inch, 2 inch spacer. For how wide the tire is, that would have been too aggressive for me. And like I said, I didn't want it to rub so bad. Do a little walk around here quick. So of course, not a huge difference. Obviously, just 1/4 inch and 3/8 inch spacers aren't going to make a huge difference, but this is what I was looking for, so I'm happy with it. We'll just have to see here. I'll turn the wheel in a few minutes and see how much we got to trim off the mud flaps. Real quick, here's another side shot. I realized when I did that walk around, I didn't get a good view of the whole truck from the side. Not that it really matters too much, because you can't tell how much they stick out, but in case you wanted a side shot. All right, so we're checking fitment here. Get out of here, spider. As you can see, just barely touches right there. So what I think I'm gonna do is kind of take a Dremel and just follow this outline and just cut it down a bit and then over. All right, so I took the Dremel here with a little cutting disc, and this is what we did. Like I said, just kind of followed this line down, took about 3/4 of an inch down, went around, and then cut back up. Not the cleanest cut in the world. I can clean that up. We're just gonna kind of fit it again and see what happens. Okay, so for my 1.5 inch leveling kit with these exact tires, with this size and the current spacer setup and the factory mud flaps, I did 3 cuts. The first cut, I took about 3/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch off. Second cut, same thing, and then the final cut was about a 1/4 inch. So we're looking at approximately 1.5 to 1 3/4 total here. And this is what the flap looks like now. Still usable. And as you can see, we clear now. Come back this way a bit. And back to the right. Perfect. It's kind of hard to tell on camera here. It looks like the corner of this tread is actually still touching the flat, but it's just kind of a optical illusion. It's not. I just can't get the camera far enough. There we go. There's a good shot. So So now I have enough clearance to where even if I hit a little bump or I'm backing into the driveway, should be good. Shouldn't have any issues rubbing there. So now I'm gonna do the same steps on the other side. And there we go. No rub, 0 rubbing. All right, so we're all done. Factory mud flaps trimmed for the 285 65 20s and the wheel spacers for no rubbing. Very happy with how it turned out. If this video was informative for you, make sure you hit that like button. Subscribe for more videos like this. Check me out on Facebook at Tony the Truck Guy. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.